This time we're going to be sketching graphs using our x and y intercepts. Our x-intercept is the place on the graph where y is equal to 0. So y will always be equal to 0 for our x-intercept. And for our y-intercept, it's where x is equal to 0. So it's really important that we remember x-intercept, y is equal to 0, y-intercept, x equal to 0. Now we've talked about the fact before that we need 2 points to sketch a graph. So now my x-intercept and my y-intercept are going to be the 2 points that I plot on my graph and draw my line through. So let's have a look at the first example here where we are asked to find the coordinate of the x-intercept. We'll be looking at how to do this on the calculator as well, but let's have a look at it manually. Now, x-intercept, what do we know about the x-intercept? We know that we have to let y equal to 0. So let's do that. 0 equals minus 2x minus 7. Bring the 7 across and it becomes positive. This is just an algebra equation now. So 7 equals minus 2x and then divide by the minus 2. 7 divided by minus 2 is equal to x. What is the coordinate there? The coordinate, because that's what it asked for, a coordinate. The coordinate is when x is minus 7 on 2 and y is equal to 0. All right, what about the next one then? Well, we're still trying to find the same thing. So we're going to let y equal to 0 and we're going to do it exactly the same way. 0 equals minus 3 on 4x plus 6. Okay, the fraction might make things a little bit more difficult for you, but overall it shouldn't be too hard. We're going to bring the 6 across first and it becomes a minus 6. Minus 6 is equal to, now have a look at how I'm going to write that 3/4. That is exactly the same thing as minus 3x on 4. Which might now help us in terms of getting the x by itself, because the next thing to go across is the 4. And what's the 4 doing to the x? It's dividing, so the opposite is 2 times. So minus 24, because minus 6 times 4 is minus 24, equals minus 3x. Still, I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to divide by negative 3. So negative 24 divided by negative 3. Negative and negative is a positive, and 3 goes into 24 8 times. So my x value is 8. Now, there's a bit of algebra there. We might need to polish up on that. So our overall x-intercept there is 8, 0. When y is equal to 0, x is equal to 8. Let's do this one manually as well, and then we'll have a look at the calculator later. So 3x minus 4y equals to 12. And we want to sketch this graph using the x and the y intercepts. So the x and the y intercepts. So x-intercept, what do we know? Well, we know that for the x-intercept, we let y equal to 0. So let's do that. 3x minus 4 times 0. So wherever I've got y, I'm going to put 0 equals 12. Now 4 times 0 is 0. So what I'm left with is 3x take away 0, which is 3x, which equals 12. Divide by 3, x is equal to 4. What is the coordinate there? The coordinate is when x is equal to 4, y is equal to 0. So that's my x-intercept. That's 1 point on my graph. What is my y-intercept? Well, let's find that one out. Okay, y-intercept. What do we let equal 0? We let x equal to 0. So substituting x equal to 0 into our equation, we get 3 times 0, take away 4y is equal to 12. And of course 3 times 0 is 0. What am I left with there? Minus 4y equals 12. Divide by the negative 4, so y is equal to negative 3. What's the coordinate? The coordinate is when x is equal to 0, remember x always goes first, y is equal to negative 3. All right, we're up to the point now where we want to plot those 2 points on our graph. So we have our y-axis, we have our x-axis, and really we only need a small scale, so we've gone up in ones in both directions. Let's plot the first point there, the x-intercept. So we know that's going to be on the x-axis, and it tells us when x is equal to 4, y is equal to 0. So that is the point. Remember, we always label the points we go through. That's the point 4, 0. And the next point, when x is equal to 0, y is minus 3. So that's our y-intercept. It cuts the y-axis. So 0 minus 3. And then we simply draw our line through the graph. And I like to label that line. So what was that line called? It was 3x minus 4y is equal to 12. So that's sketching a graph using your x and y intercepts. They are your 2 points that you've gone through. So y equals minus 2x plus 5. The first thing we notice is that it is in a different format to the example we did in A. It's actually in that format, y equals mx plus c. And if you had the choice, you would probably use your y-intercept and gradient method to sketch this. But we don't. So let's set about finding our 2 points by finding the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So x-intercept, we're going to let y equal to 0. So we get 0 equals minus 2x plus 5. And now we need to get the x by itself. So the first thing to go across is the 5. It becomes minus 5 equals minus 2x. And minus 5 divided by minus 2 is x. Of course, a negative and a negative makes a positive. So it's just 5 over 2. Now, that is 2.5. But we don't have to write it as a mixed number. So our coordinate there, when x is 5 on 2, y is 0. Let's find our y-intercept before we start plotting this graph. So our y-intercept, we are going to let x equal to 0. So substituting x equal to 0 into the equation, we get y is equal to minus 2. Now x is 0, so 2 times 0 plus 5. And so therefore y is equal to 5. We should have really been able to read that off our graph originally anyway, because 5 is our y-intercept. So what is the coordinate there? It is when x is 0, y is 5. So let's start plotting these points. Remember, we only need 2 points to sketch a graph. So the first one, 5 on 2, so 2.5 and 0 is around about there. It's between 2 and 3. So that's the point 5 on 2 and 0. And the other point, when x is 0, y is 5, is up here. Notice the scaling on my graph. I've just gone up in ones because I don't need to go up in bigger numbers. I'm not dealing with bigger numbers. So this point here is the point 0, 5. I'm labelling all of the points that I am going through. And of course then my last step is to draw a line through that graph. And remember, it goes on in both directions, to infinity in both directions. So the last thing that I will do there is just label my graph. So it's y equal to minus 2x plus 5. And that is the graph of y equal to minus 2x plus 5.